This is The Roadmap with Lee Heisman.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Roadmap, exclusively here on ASBN.com. I'm Lee Heisman, and every week we bring you some of the brightest entrepreneurs, CEOs, and business owners who are climbing the ladder, scaling their businesses, and thinking about how one day to exit stage left. Today, ladies and gentlemen, news royalty.
Oh boy.
Royalty in the studio.
Oh boy.
My good friend, Justin Farmer. Justin, CEO, I'm going to introduce you as CEO of Exit Wealth Advisors. Congratulations for this transition. I cannot wait to find out how this happened.
Thanks, pal. And congratulations to you and your Philadelphia Eagles. Super Bowl bound, baby.
That's true. By the time this airs, we will know at that point if they win or lose. So it might be from that time, but we'll soon find out. My voice is a little bit scraggly today.
And look, Patrick Mahomes, he's obviously carving out his own place right at the top of the heap among some of the best ever. But I think we've seen enough of that.
I think we have.
So
and I think the Eagles are going to have a little payback from 2 years ago.
Okay.
But we're going to find out.
We'll find out.
Yeah,
we'll find
I
out,
could
Lee.
be eating my words on this by the time this comes out. So congratulations. I want to talk about your transition, but let's just, anybody who's watching this already knows who you are. Channel 2, 17 years.
Yeah.
Talk about this history, how you got into it, your father. I know the history, so I don't want to steal the thunder here.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Lee, for having me. The quick version goes something like this, that yes, I was born in a family of journalists. My father was one of the original anchors at CNN. And prior to that, he was the youngest ABC News war correspondent, was in Vietnam back when embedded really meant embedded and they had to carry a side piece. I mean, my dad was old school, the real deal journalism. I kind of grew up in that. And then getting out of college, I just kind of went into it. I was initially a sportscaster. After 9/11, transitioned over to news. I was so profoundly affected by that experience and having been a political science major in college and yada, yada. So got into news, and it was the best thing I've ever done in terms of making a strategic choice, and worked my way up from small towns like Albany, Georgia, to Oklahoma City, then Denver, Dallas, and in 2007 signed a deal to come to Atlanta, which was always my dream city because I was born and raised in Atlanta.
Oh, congratulations on that journey.
Yeah.
And I don't want to push that under the carpet, but there's so much to talk about with your future here. Mm-hmm. Because this year, now we're in 2025, but just last year you made a choice to leave something that's been in your blood for decades, since you've been born, of course, into a new space.
It's really something, and it's when you say it out loud, and there were certainly people when I said, hey, I'm studying to get my Series 65. I'm connecting with a couple of really smart people, and we're going to do wealth management in a different way. When I said that, they said, gosh, that's exciting, but do you understand the job you have? And I said, I think so. And they said, no, really. Nobody on their own terms leaves a broadcasting job of the sort that I had. Arguably the best local television station in the United States. We were right there at the top. We had the #1 rated 6 p.m. broadcast local news in the United States. So we at WSB didn't judge ourselves just against the other stations in town. We judged ourselves by the other great television stations nationally and looked at how they performed and looked at how we performed. And so we were always #1, which was really good. But with that said, as I'm sure many of your guests, Lee, have said something along this theme, is that just because you can do something and you've been good at something for a long time doesn't mean that's the only thing that you want to do. And I got to a point in my life that I wanted to push myself, and I wanted to lean into a passion of mine and turn it into a profession. Passion was investing. The profession is let's do that kind of investing on behalf of very successful people who have sold their businesses. Let's do that for them, and let's see if we can do it in a way that hadn't been done before.
That's interesting. Well, the role is CEO of Exit Wealth Advisors, and the smart people you're talking about, I don't know how I'm in that group, but Ted Janken as well, your partner, who's
right.
our other host on the Roadmap. Talk about what excites you the most about this new chapter.
I would say when you can look at someone and directly affect their trajectory of not only themselves, but their children and their children's children, and that you can do that with some uniquely smart suggestions and strategies, whether you're talking about investing, whether you're talking about alternative investing, whether you're talking about ways to look at how you set up your taxes in your estate. These are life-changing decisions that people make. Sometimes they don't make them with enough homework, or they make them without the proper guidance. And we really like our members, Lee, as you know. These are phenomenal people that we've gotten to know well through the process of selling their company with them. And it becomes a pretty intimate relationship. You know an awful lot about someone when you go through a process like that. And then the other half of this relationship is now making sure that this significant wealth event that is a very rare thing, it's a very rare thing. So now let's be good stewards of that thing that you just achieved.
So go back to your history, 30 years in the broadcast news. Has any of that experience prepared you for what you're experiencing now, being the CEO and the entrepreneur in this space?
Yeah, it's a really insightful question. And by the way, I did not get any of these questions ahead of time. So
You did not, and I have a few fun ones for you.
Okay. But some people have accused the people in the media of giving certain questions to certain politicians in advance.
Does that happen?
I think that it has happened.
Has it happened with you and your
Yes,
experience?
I was requested, I'm just being honest, hey, you want to break some news? Here we go.
Yeah.
No, this is a true story. So I was very fortunate in 2011 to get to sit down one-on-one and interview then President Barack Obama. We did it one-on-one in the White House. Highlight of my career for 1,000 reasons. But one of the things that was interesting in the week leading up to us traveling to DC, we got an email from the president's press secretary asking, what are some of the questions you'll be asking the president? And I said, well, I know that we're going to be talking about healthcare, but I'm so sorry I cannot provide you with any of the questions in advance. That would go against my own standards. My boss at the time said, are you crazy? You're going to piss off the White House or we may not get this interview. And I said to that boss at that time, oh, we're definitely getting it. If they disinvited us because of our pushback on wanting to get the questions, how embarrassing for them.
Yeah.
Of course, we didn't lose the invitation. And the interview went great. And I was never a gotcha journalist anyway, Lee. That was never my style.
Did they give you questions or they did not?
No. I think at that point they thought, okay, we're not going to get this local news flunky to sing off of our song sheet. This is an adult.
Yes.
And so that was a great day. But it does happen. But to answer the question that you asked previously about what skill sets may have been involved in a 30-year broadcasting career that translate over into what we're doing with wealth management and legacy management and tax suggestions. And I would say this, it's really the ability to listen and it's two parts. One is really listen. And by listen, I mean listen to our member. If you're one of our members, I'm going to do a deep dive on what's your life like? What are your goals about? What's meaningful to you? What do you think your children care about? And at what points in their lives? So it's a lot about doing homework and listening. A lot of it's also listening to the things CEOs say. I can look at the data on a company till the cows come home, free cash flow to enterprise value and share buybacks, for example, or PE ratio. You can look at that till the cows come home, and there's a lot of value in that. But the next layer of that is listen to the CEOs, listen to the leadership. Is that where they start to separate in their messaging? Because messaging is everything. The best companies almost always have the best messaging. So I really pay attention to the messaging.
Well, paying attention to that, you said something, and a lot of viewers are probably confused. You mentioned the word members. Mm-hmm. Can you elaborate on that? Because I've never heard that before in terms of a firm and clients that they have.
So I'm a huge golf fan. And the great golf clubs of the world, whether you want to talk about Augusta National, of course, or Cypress, or the Honors Course, these are some of the most revered golf clubs in the world. And there's a few reasons why those clubs get into that rarefied air. They're very, very private. They're very, very discerning. And you don't call up and say, hey, I'd like to get into Augusta National. We'll call you. And in no way does that mean we're not approachable, but what it does mean is that we are choosing our members to have a really good blend with our existing members. We want to not just manage your wealth. That's just a small part of it. We're trying to bring a collective of truly dynamic, extraordinarily successful people. And success is defined in a lot of ways other than just the size of one's bank account.
So true.
So it's a membership that we're building. It's an entire environment and a community, if you will.
Yeah, I love this ecosystem that you're putting together. And I want to talk about, moving into this entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. You had another company, so mm-hmm. you claimed you have claimed the stake to be an entrepreneur, being an owner in a distilling company. Speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, years ago, I always enjoyed whiskeys and brown water, as we call them, whiskeys and bourbons. And when I was a much, much younger man in Boston College with Ted, while all those kids were drinking, Bud Light and Coors Light, I'm a Southern kid up there in the Northeast, and I would say, no. In the South, we drink bourbon or we drink whiskey, right? And so going back to all the way, then I've sort of been a fan of it. And then fast forward many, many years later. So in 2011, I decided with a good friend of mine who had been a big executive at the Molson Coors company. I recruited him and one other operations genius, and we said, let's create Georgia's first bourbon since Prohibition. Let's take it to market. So this was before the big craft explosion where everybody and their brother was running into craft spirits. We were pretty early. In Georgia, we were the earliest. So we got into that game, and here we are. We've won many awards.
What is the name of it?
It's called Savannah Bourbons, Savannah Vodka. We've won some cool awards. We're not Jack Daniels. We're never going to be them, and that's okay. That wasn't the goal. But it's not a hobby. It's a real business. And we're sold in liquor stores all across Georgia and soon to be Florida and South Carolina.
So, Justin, as you already know this, you probably are one of the most well-spoken individuals in the country from the decades that you've worked. You're definitely the most well-spoken person I'm around, so I love to be around you because I get to learn and lean on you. But I want to talk about challenges because to people watching this today, it sure does sound like this is pretty easy for you. Everything's been easy. It's just happened. You're now the CEO.
Piece of cake.
But that's what it sounds like. That's
right.
what it sounds like. I want you to just talk about this transition from what you've been doing for the past 17 years into this new CEO role and this new entrepreneurial position.
Right.
Talk about maybe two of the top challenges that you're experiencing so far.
Wow. So really, in my view, it's all about can you dig deep? And what I mean by that is, if you go back to the beginning of my broadcast career, there were some headwinds. The son of a broadcaster who was well known. Oh, what did he earn? What did he do? And so I really wanted to go far away and where no one knew who my dad was and dig deep and find out, did I have the goods to do it on my own? I had to answer that question for myself. I had to dig deep. I had to work in horrible markets. I made terrible money and all that kind of good stuff. And it does make you stronger. Fast forward to what you asked about making a career transition like this. Well, I would never do it carelessly. These stories you may hear on a podcast or in some Netflix show about some guy who maxed out all his credit cards to start his company and now he's a billionaire. Has that ever happened? Maybe. Do I suggest it? No. That's reckless, that's careless. And you know where I'm going with this because I've known you now for a few years, Lee, and that is I plotted very carefully. I did some introspection. What am I interested in? Okay, how do I lean into that? Okay, how do I get into that business and how do I do it well? Well, that took a lot of work. So I went back to school in essence, on my own. I would put my son to bed. I would study. I prepared 7 months of the most studying I'd done since college to prepare to pass the Series 65. Again, what I loved about that, was it hard? It really was. I mean, understanding actuary tables and understanding all the different tax structures and understanding options trading and all of these crazy things. I mean, this is a fat book that you had to nail, as you know. But I sort of enjoyed the journey because I knew that it was a barrier to entry. And I wanted to dig deep. And again, I found out when I was 22, could I find out at 50, do I have what it takes to dig deep to get to do the next thing I want to do?
So, you did jump off. You're in it. We're in it. It's a great journey to watch so far. I'm watching you lead this organization. For viewers out there that are thinking of a career change like this, what advice do you have for them?
Plan. I mean, no, seriously.
You didn't even hesitate. You didn't even hesitate.
Didn't even hesitate because I've been asked that question many, many times is, are you crazy? What are you doing? And so I would say, no, I'm not crazy. If you hear a voice, Lee, and I know you know this so well because you're such a dynamic entrepreneur with such success, and there are voices that we hear at certain times in our lives. When there may be a passing one. Usually the passing ones are full of bad ideas. Let those go, or at least sleep on it, okay? But if you hear a voice saying something to you over months and years, now it's time to listen. Where is that coming from? So first of all, understand where the voice is coming from. What's it really saying? Okay, now I've got to find a direction and a rudder. So the advice I would have is make sure your motivations they don't have to be pure, but at least make sure that they are real as rain. So find out what your motivations are. And it's okay if they're simply, I just want to make more money. That's okay. It's a hell of a motivation. Half of our country was built on that. That's great. I love capitalism as much as the next guy. Be rich, but maybe also be a good person too. That's another show. But I would just say plan, save for it, the revenue that you're dreaming of, expect that it'll take twice as long as your worst case scenario.
So how important is it, as you're seasoned like myself, we're well over 50 years old together. How important when you're making this, and advice for others, is, when you have a wife, children, is it important to have a great support system that supports you through this?
Well, it helps that they don't care for me much, so it really frees me up. Yes, of course. I want to share something with you that is top 5 moments of my life. Okay? Speaking of wife and children. So it's about a year ago, December, January, right before I'm taking my big exam. And I set my alarm for 4:30. So I would wake up and study before my son would get up. I'd go get him up and I love taking him to school. That was our time in the truck together. And when you've got a kid, anybody who's a parent, when you've got a kid and they're trapped inside your vehicle with them, you can force them to engage with you, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I would usually go get him out of bed about 6:45, 7 o'clock and get him dressed for the day. Meanwhile, I had been studying the previous 2.5, 3 hours or whatever it was. And then I would get him to school, then I'd go back to studying, and then I'd go in to do my newscast, and that was the rest of my day. But the point is this, about the wife and children. So one morning I'm up studying very, very early, and I hear a knock on my office door inside my house, a little knock. And I knew who it was. I said, "Yeah, Wallace, come in, buddy. What's up?" Lee, he walks in sort of with a little bit of trepidation because my door had been closed, and he walks in holding a cup of coffee, and he puts it on my desk, and he said, "Hey, Dad, how's the studying going?"
No way.
My eyes just welled with tears.
Oh, gosh.
And I said, "Buddy, it means the world to me." He said, "Dad, you're going to pass this exam. You've been putting in the work."
Wow.
My 11-year-old said that to me.
Wow.
Well, you ever wonder if you're on the path? You ever wonder if, now this isn't just about me. What example now what can I show my 11-year-old child? You better freaking do this.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, hats off. And I met Wallace. What a nice young man. My gosh, what a kind young man. And your wife is just as supportive. I don't want to dismiss that.
Yeah, sorry, Allison. I gave him all the pub.
Exactly.
Of course. What kind of woman says, hold on, you were making how many hundreds of thousands of dollars a year and you want to walk away from all of that? They don't want you to leave? You've got a guaranteed contract? Or what? Just at first, look, in honesty, at first she said, slow down. What are we talking about? So I gave her that time. We talked about it carefully, slowly, and I said, I'll do you a deal. You know me, Allison. I will be careful. I'll try to make a lot of wise decisions. I'll include you in the decision making. And then she said, this is cool. She said, well, you've never failed at anything. Why would you start now?
That's exactly right. Wow, she's hedging her bets. That's beautiful. I love that. So advice for people out there. Not only do everything you said earlier, but also get the family support and get them on board.
If you can, otherwise you can really create some friction. And the way that you can get family support, I would just suggest, is try to the best extent that you can to shore up your expenses. And I know this show is not at the lowest fundamental level of sort of life finance, but I would just say at any age, if you've got a big car payment out there, try to get that taken care of. If there's any ways you can sort of cut in your life, stop eating out as much. Just those old basics, employ those old basics.
Yep, actions speak louder than words, and if you can get people on board because you're showing those actions, I think it doubles down the effort. So I know time is wrapping up. I've got to ask a few important questions.
Yeah.
Really, people care most about this. Your input and advice was wonderful. But we need to know, you said you're from Atlanta. What is your country go-to 90s song? I know that there's...
My God.
Your go-to 90s song. Our mutual friend gave me some questions. You're familiar with her.
Anna Lentz.
Yeah.
Man, I love me some country music. I'd say anything by Alan Jackson.
Alan Jackson.
And I will not flip the station. Noonan, Georgia, born. And
wow.
I love me some Alan Jackson. Yeah.
Okay, fair. So any particular song?
He's gone country.
He's gone country. Okay, just keep him with the theme.
I like
it.
He's gone country.
I did make a telephone call to a restaurant called El Azteca.
You did not.
Yeah, and they do have on the menu a farmer margarita. Is that accurate?
True.
Okay. Fair.
Really driven by my wife. So she gets this organic. She figured out years and years ago. We used to go there an awkward amount of time. And she had them craft some organic margarita for her that they refer to it as the Allison Farmer.
So it's the Allison Farmer. The Allison Farmer margarita. I like that. We're going to have to go there and celebrate it.
Done.
Well, Justin, my gosh, what a treat today. Time is flying by. It's flown by, pardon me. Unbelievable. Thank you so much for coming
Lee, you're very
on.
generous. I love you as a guy and being a business partner.
Yes.
Thanks for having me today.
So if people want to get in touch with you, if they just want to, what's the best way? LinkedIn, email, what's the best way for people
All
to
of
reach
that,
out?
maybe for purposes of the show, yeah, just find me on LinkedIn. I think you'll find it pretty quickly. And also, you can find me if you just go to exitwealth.com or LinkedIn or Instagram, any of those.
Fair. Well, you have an amazing following as well, and I'm glad you got that with you along the way. Ladies and gentlemen, Justin Farmer, my gosh, royalty here. Thank you so much for
Thanks,
coming
pal.
on the show.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you for joining the show today. I hope this was as insightful for you as it was absolutely for myself. We hope to see you again next week on another episode of The Roadmap.
Thanks for watching The Roadmap with Lee Heisman.